and I'm locked in a cabin with two guys who are Afghans. We're in the middle of a war and I don't have a weapon on me.
Very accomplished, one of the most successful female coaches, fighters, instructors that I know in the UK.
So I went into the intelligence corps. Surprises people sometimes.
And you are one of the hardest working people I know.
I remember one guy, and he looked at me as if like, you can't whack it. I thought, wow, I'm going to send you flying. Anyway, I hit him, I sent him flying across the mat as he landed on his backside. I said, have I proved my point yet?
I'm Lee Matthews, and this is the Elite Podcast. Today's guest is Charlotte Craighill, Army veteran, multiple Taekwondo and kickboxing champion, and head instructor of over 550 students in Leeds. This is an episode not to be missed.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. How'd you find the journey to get here?
Yes, it was all right actually, yeah. It took a bit of traffic, but not too bad, thank you.
Oh, brilliant. So you've come all the way from Leeds? And
I have, yes. Early start and then straight over.
Dropped the little one off at schools.
I
then
did,
first,
yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Well, today then, what we're going to do, just have a casual chat. I'm going to just start back from the past, if that's all right.
Yeah,
Talk a little bit about what it's like being Charlotte.
Yep.
What you weren't Craighill then? What were you?
Watson. Yeah.
So yeah, what was it like being Charlotte Watson? Growing up, where were you? Because you haven't got a Leeds accent, have you?
No. So I'm from London originally. I grew up in London, and then I moved to Cyprus when I was 16. Actually, with my parents, they immigrated over there for about 18 years now. Went to university out there and trained with the national team in Cyprus for a few years as well.
Oh wow!
So
what part of London then would you grow up in?
So right on the south border, so a place called Mitcham. I started training a little pavilion around the corner. I always remember me and my dad was walking the dogs, and I heard all this shouting. And I was like, oh my gosh, Dad, what's this noise? And my dad used to do karate years before I was born, and he told me all about it. So my mum booked me in for my first lesson, and my dad was like, don't buy her a suit. You know, she won't stick at it. It'll be one lesson. My sister was quite here, there and everywhere of her sports. And yeah, I laugh at my dad. I got my money's worth out of that suit.
Did you?
But yeah, loved it, absolutely loved it. And was training 6 days a week and traveling all around the world. And I absolutely adored it. I loved my time.
So when you first started out then, how old were you when you started?
So I was 8 when I started.
Yeah, good age that is as well.
Yeah, really great age. In our team, there were some absolutely fantastic fighters at the top of their game there as well.
Even at that age as well?
Yeah, so I probably started fighting about 9, did terrible, like absolutely terrible. I always say to my guys, you know, when they get upset, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was in that boat, you know, it's perseverance, isn't it, when you start. But yeah, and then it all just started to click a bit when I was maybe about 11.
Yeah.
And then realised actually I'm quite good at this. But yeah, it
takes a few ass whippings first.
Oh
doesn't it?
My gosh, I was always the nice kid as well. My coach just go mad at me. I take a big boot to the face, and I suddenly go, oh, okay, I can do this now. And I needed that wake up call a bit earlier sometimes, but. Yeah, just absolutely loved it, and the opportunities I got through training, and the friends, you know, still friends to this day. And
yeah, of course.
Absolutely amazing opportunities.
That's the main thing out of martial arts, isn't it? That you get. Yeah. It's not just the skill set, is it?
No.
It's the lifestyle, it's the friends, you know, the experiences and stuff.
No, definitely. I think not. Maybe it's quite similar to yours, but you know, I had friends at school that was doing different things. You know, going drinking in the park and you know, not really doing much outside of school really. And you know when I hit teenager, it was a bit hard, you know, like, oh, I can't go to that party, I've got to train, oh, can't do that, I've got a competition. But you know, it's done me in good stead now, and I now get to do my passion every day. So the commitment was 100% worthwhile.
It's Taekwondo you started with, wasn't it, as well?
So Olympic style Taekwondo.
Olympic style Taekwondo,
So yeah, done that all my life until I met you actually. I went over to Korea when I was 13.
Wow, did you?
Which was really interesting. We was part of the first European team to ever compete in Korea. So they have a thing called Children's Week. And so they have big competitions over there. It's the home sport of Taekwondo is in Korea, like football is over here.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So over there, all the kids, they'll do an hour's training in school every day of Taekwondo. Their standards just, you know, off the charts.
Well, they do it at school every day
for an hour.
That's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, you'll get their elite people do it in the mornings before school, and then obviously they're training 2-3 hours a night and competing, and so it was just a different world. So yeah, it was 2 English, 2 German, 2 French, and I think 2 Spanish, and we went over there for 2 weeks training.
How were you welcomed?
It was amazing. It was really nice. There was like people at the airport greeting us, little flags. It was like with celebrities. It was fantastic.
Yeah, oh good.
So we did like a week's training there. And it was amazing.
Was that like every day or a couple of times a day?
Yeah, a couple of times a day, which was like our first, you know, I now know the full-time teams have stuff like that in place, but, you know, going from, at that age, I was going to school and then I was training overnight time and obviously at weekends as well. So to then be able to train 2-3 times a day was just like unreal. Was all, you know, loving it. And then over there, it's all, you know, 8 stands, 9 stands, and we're like, oh my God, they're like gods. It was insane. And then at the end of the week, we had a competition as well. But they'd scoped us out, so we.
They've been watching you all week.
They wasn't messing about. They wasn't taking their chances. So I remember we'd gone down for breakfast, and the parents and the coaches got called into a meeting, and we was all just hanging around outside, and we're all, you know, really young. And they're like, oh, you got to go on the bus. Your coaches are going on the other bus. We're going training. So we're like, oh right, okay. And we just jump on this bus. And they take us to go train, and we're like thinking, where's our coaches? But then all these 8th and 9th stands come in. So obviously we're like, right, we've got to impress. And we're there, and we're like absolutely murdering everyone.
Yeah.
And I remember we'd done a few drills. They're like, right, we're going to spar now. I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, you're up first. I was like, oh, okay. And I stand up, and I've got like this row of 20 girls in front of me, all my weight. And I'm just like buzzing. I'm like, oh my God, I've got 20 people to fight. Like, let's go. And they're just like, you'd fight one for about 30 seconds, a minute. And they're like, no, they're too easy for you. Shift her. And they just kept bringing in more.
The standard higher and higher until they got you.
So then they knew for the competition, they worked out who in the country they was drawing. But no, that is amazing.
They made sure they put one a level above you then for the competition.
But yeah, no, it's phenomenal. And then at the time, I still did what we call pumpse, or cat, as some people call it.
Yeah.
So I did both styles when I was a child.
Did you enjoy that as much as the combat, or was you?
I did, you know. As a kid, I enjoyed the intricacy of it. I enjoyed the detail of it. Like, obviously, you know, everything about the foot positioning. It was the details.
It's a lot of attention to detail,
and
isn't it?
I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And I did both, and I think they complemented each other quite nice. I enjoy fighting more, obviously. You get to hit people.
Your guys are good at cats as well. But you can tell.
Yeah. But no, it was good. I enjoyed the detailedness of it, to be fair. And when I used to compete in the UK, you'd maybe have six girls to compete against. And I remember sitting down, and there was like, it was on a mat, and it was in Kukkiwan, which is the home place of Taekwondo. It was just like amazing atmosphere in there. And I looked down the line, and there's 20 girls in my line. I remember looking up at my dad in the stadium, like giving him a thumbs up, like, wow, look, I've got 20 people. And then my dad just kind of did this circle, and I realised, no, it was 150 people was my category. So yeah,
that's a hell of a category.
It was impressive.
How'd you get on?
I got the silver, actually.
Did you?
So
how many fights was that then?
So that was in the Pumse side. That wasn't in the fighting side. So in the fighting side, they did it as like demonstration fights.
So you had to sit there for 150 people to do each of their.
So they do it different over there. So I'll call up about 6 of you at a time, and then they'll shout out. So there's about, I know at the level I was at, there's maybe like 12 Pumses I had to know.
Yeah.
So we had in our head we had to do 2. So I drilled 2 for the like 6 months leading up to it. And then they just shouted a number, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've not practiced this one. But yeah, so all 6 of us have to do that number.
Yeah.
And then they keep 1, and then they just whittle it down, kind of thing.
Whole day, that is.
It was a long day. But yeah, the experience of competing in Korea was just unreal.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sounds amazing.
It was.
So how old were you then when you went to Korea?
So I was about 13. And then we did lots of trips to Germany. We did Germany quite a lot. That's where they held the ETU Europeans, which still held there now.
Yeah.
And then when I was in the Cypriot team, I travelled a bit more. We did Turkey, I did Kazakhstan, which was a bizarre place to be.
So when you went to you moved to Cyprus, didn't you? What age was that then?
So
did you say?
I was 16. Yeah.
Okay. So and then quite big over there. Was it Taekwondo? You found a good club?
Yeah. So yeah, it's a small island.
Yeah.
So it was a very different style, and they did a style called GTF, which is quite similar to ITF.
Yeah.
Similar to kickboxing.
But it's not the Olympic one though.
Yes and no. They did the training for it. They did a bit of competitions with it, and they we had to straddle across both areas, which was different. I've never been punched in the face before, so that was an eye opener. First time.
Right, was there no face contact then with the strikes? Yeah,
so
of course.
So in WTF,
that's a whole different world, isn't it?
Yeah, I remember it was in the GTF rules, and I remember going to the competition thinking I was doing WTF. That's my bread and butter. I've done it for years. And they're chucking me onto the mats, putting gloves on me. And I'm going, why have I got gloves on? Like, what's going on? They're like, oh, you're doing this. And I was like, I don't even know the rules. So as I'm walking onto the mats, they're shouting the rules at me. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then in about the first 30 seconds, she punched me square in the face. And I remember just looking at my coach like, what the hell is going on? Why is she punching me?
Everyone has a plan to get punched in the face.
They're allowed to do that. I was like, right, okay, game on, let's go. But yeah, and then I got my first taste of not quite kickboxing, but I quite enjoyed it actually.
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, so maybe my discipline doesn't completely work and I need to, you know, broaden my horizons a little bit.
Did that make you think that then when the rules had changed slightly and you
Yeah,
were...
it definitely changed the dynamics. For us as Taekwondo, we fight at a very like fair distance and we keep everyone out at a leg reach.
Very good at it, by the way, though, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? That is they are very good at
definitely. But as soon as you close down the legs, if you've got nothing to back it with, then you're in trouble, really.
I think with most martial arts, they've got the shortfalls as well, haven't they? But when you recognise that and you can do it. So I would say if you do something like Taekwondo or points fighting and box, then you are a good all-round striker. Do you know what I mean? Because you get used to giving a shot, taking one as well, and you've got that extra range and you're able to cover distance well and kick people from far away, which is great because you've got less chance of getting hit.
Yeah, 100%.
It's always a bonus as far as I'm concerned.
Definitely.
Do you know? So you was in Cyprus then, 16. How long did you stay there?
So I studied out there. I actually went to university.
Oh, right.
So I got really good grades at school, which is surprising. My school
Really?
wasn't great. I know, yeah. Don't look it. But yeah, no, I liked school actually. Wasn't the best school I went to. But
What did you study?
So I did market. Well, so you say this. So I wanted to do law. That was my whole intentions in high school. And they had an affiliation with a university in England. And so I was going to go out there to study law and I'd be able to practice in the UK when I come back. And then a month before I moved out there, they dropped that. And so I couldn't study law. So then I basically was like, oh, what course can I do that will make me the most money? So I tried to go into computer engineering, and about a month in, I was like, I'm not smart enough.
You can't follow money, it doesn't work. You got to do what you find interesting, haven't you, and you're passionate about.
No, definitely. So no, I went into marketing actually.
And you're very good at that as well.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you are good at that.
So yeah, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And then, so I stayed out there for 3 years. And then I moved back to England and that's when I joined the army actually.
So what age were you then?
So I joined the army I was 18, just about to turn 19.
Okay, and so what year was that then?
That would have been 2006, 7.
So Afghan was already on then, wasn't it? So was you?
Yeah, so I was...
Tell me about the mindset of that then, because you're joining up as an 18-year-old girl to the British Army, knowing there's a war on and that you're definitely going to be sent out into combat. So tell me about them.
So both my parents are...
Tell me about what your dad thought and your mum.
Yeah, it was... Well, so my parents are really supportive. They both was in the military. So my mum was in the RAF and my dad was in the army.
Yeah.
But before I was born, I'm not a pad brat. Nothing wrong with them though. But no, so they was really, really supportive. I actually wanted to join the bomb disposal at first.
Did you?
And,
Psycho.
Yeah, and my mum
That's the last thing I'd ever. That's the last thing I'd ever want to do.
Yeah, maybe in hindsight, definitely.
Yeah.
But my mum put her foot down. She was like, absolutely no way, I'll disown you if you do that, which is fair.
What regiment was it you went to?
So I went into the intelligence corps.
Yeah.
Which surprises people sometimes. But no, I really enjoyed it. So we did our training in Winchester, which was our basic training. And that's for all cap badges.
Is that 10 weeks or 12?
So 12 weeks at the time. So when I did it, it was still mixed sex at the time, which I wholesomely agree. Yeah,
Why isn't it now?
Unless it's reverted back, last time I heard they'd separated the girls and the boys into separate platoons. But I loved it. I'm a very competitive person anyway. So they always have benchmarks for what the guys should be and what the girls should be. But my rules were we're all going to war together. We should all have the same benchmarks.
Brilliant, great mindset as well.
Yeah, definitely. And so I was always pushing myself to try and be as good as, or if not better than the lads out there. It was a no-brainer for me. And yeah, it was great. We pushed each other, and the guys obviously didn't want a female on their back, so they're working harder as well. So we went over to Chicksands. I was in Chicksands for 6 months.
So what's that?
Chicksands is based for the intelligence corps.
So it's your phase 2.
So that's our phase 2 training.
Yeah, so that's quite an extensive amount of time then. 6 months,
really
isn't it?
Yeah, it was a lot. And then we go in the intelligence corps, we go straight into our cadres to do our lance corporals.
Oh yeah, so you basically finished training and then you were a junior NCO.
So yes and no, you have to go straight into a cadre though.
Okay.
So we're not given rank, we still have to do our cadre.
Okay, of course.
So yeah, did the cadre. That was freezing. I did not enjoy my week's
NCO cadres are tough going, aren't they?
They were. I loved it, in hindsight you look back on it and the memories are there forever, aren't they? But at the time you're just like, oh my god.
Type 2 fun they call it, don't they, in the army? Type 1's fun is it's fun when you're doing it, and type 2 fun is fun afterwards.
Definitely type 2 then,
The whole army's type 2 fun, isn't it? It's absolutely shit when you're in there, and it's amazing when you look back, isn't it?
No, definitely. It's always those it's your turn for stag. No, I've just fell asleep, it can't be my turn. But yeah, and then I went to York. What
was your job within the Int Corps then? Because I'm a bit naive to this. So obviously I was in the army, but I was in the parachute regiment. Yeah. We don't really mix at all with anyone else. You don't really know
not
much.
Many people know anyway. So there's loads of branches with the intelligence corps. So one thing they do that's really good is you can do a 2-year detachment.
Yeah.
And then you can completely change role reversals.
So you can do 2 years in one thing and then just pivot a little bit. And
yeah, 100%. And there's loads of areas that they cover. So we did security.
Yeah.
So when I was based in York, we looked at the whole of the Northeast. If there was any issues that the military had caused, we'd be there to interview and look after our soldiers, really.
Yeah.
If it pushed along with the police lines as well. And then just security of the camps to make sure there could be no breaches, or if there was protests, you know, to deal with those sort of things. Just make sure personnel were secure, you know, within their campsites. And then when I went over to Afghan, we did security over there as well.
Yeah. Was that quite good?
So I loved it,
being on operations and when you're actually doing your job properly.
Yeah.
Where you know there's high stakes, isn't there?
Yeah,
if you don't
definitely.
do, yeah.
It was really great. So I was based in Kandahar. I was in Herrick 7.
Yeah.
So Kandahar is an American base. It was absolutely massive. It's where everyone flies into.
Oh, yeah. The American bases are like flipping insane. Holiday resorts, aren't they?
Krispy Kreme donuts. There was Domino's. It was crazy. They had a thing called Boardwalk, and they had a market there every Sunday. And you just go,
oh, wow.
What's going on? We're in Afghanistan. It was weird. It was strange. Yeah. But we had a few home comforts, which made it a nicer, easier
absolutely.
6 months. The Americans' gym was better than most gyms in the UK.
Unbelievable, aren't they, what they have?
It was insane. Yeah. But yeah, no, I loved it. And so I was on a detachment. There was me, my sergeant, and then we had the OC and the sergeant major there. So I was the only junior rank.
Oh, wow.
So I got to do a lot of roles that maybe I wouldn't have normally been able to do, but because there was, you know, only 4 of us and I was the junior rank, so obviously, you know, it rolls downhill. So I got all the jobs. But I absolutely loved it. We worked a lot with the Americans, the Canadians, the Australians, so we made good contacts with them. I got to interview locals, so obviously only the men. And that was really interesting. I was the first female.
Interview, did you say?
Yeah, so we used to interview them. We was basically finding out who was Taliban supporters and who was part of which families out there.
Extracting information, trying to find out where they lie, where the land lies.
So they thought they was coming in for job interviews because they had a lot of locals working on the camps doing like cleaning the toilets, helping the chefs, that kind of thing. So we interviewed, they had to clear clearance to then be able to be allowed on camp. But then for us as well was building up, you know, who was with who, which was sympathisers, which was not. But yeah, it was really interesting. I was the first female to do it. And before I'd gone to Afghanistan, I'd done like a month's training on interviewing techniques. And the rule book, it was really interesting. It was really good. But the rule book literally just went out the window the day I got there. So they do a lot of things like you don't have a table as a barrier. You try and mimic the person you're talking to, so you know, to make them feel more relaxed and stuff like that. But when
they have the opposite as well, the intimidation ones.
So we didn't do that one, but there is those courses, of course. Yeah, that would be really fun to do. But when I got there on, I think my second day, I was told, oh, you got to go interview. I had to interview like 10 guys a day. And it's a local Afghan guy who obviously I've never met before. And my interpreter was a local guy as well, who actually turned out to be absolutely amazing. Had better English than I did. Queen's English, I used to laugh. But at the time, obviously, I don't know him. And I'm locked in a cabin with 2 guys who are Afghans. We're in the middle of a war and I don't have a weapon on me.
God, you've been in a vulnerable situation.
So then you have to, you know, okay, let's be a bit more aware of my surroundings rather than what the textbook should say I do.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Some guys, they looked at me like I was sunk on the bottom of their shoe and you know, how dare a woman talk to me.
Yeah.
Others were
different culture there, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Others were really interested, and then others were, I don't know, maybe in awe, like, oh, this woman has a voice.
Yeah.
But actually, before I moved to Cyprus, I trained with the Afghan national team in London for 2 years because their president lived in London, in West London, had a great team over there. So I trained with them for a few years. So it was strange to see, you know, these Afghans that I trained side by side with and was really close friends of mine, to then the other spectrum of these guys looking at me with, you know, disdain, really. It was an eye opener, but I loved it. I really loved it.
What were your thoughts when we pulled out of Afghan and then it literally got taken back within?
It's hard, isn't it? I was like, I really hope you don't ask that. I honestly don't think there's a right or wrong answer. How did
you feel though? Was you not bothered, or did you?
No, I was bothered, but I think having Afghan friends and then also seeing how women, you know, I could relate to the women a lot there, and seeing how the women were treated out there, you know, so awfully for things that people over here wouldn't bat an eyelid for.
Yeah.
And you know, the children couldn't go to school, and on that side I think someone's got to stand up for them. You know, their own people can't, for whatever reason, do it. You know, money and power, and there's all sorts going on in that country, and someone has to be there to go, okay, let's help them. But then obviously we lost a lot of troops, and it's hard, isn't it? And you know, I saw lots of repatriations and We've gone to funerals back home, and you know, we lost an in-corps female in Iraq, and we was part of the security for a funeral, and seeing both sides, honestly, there's no right or wrong answer. I think it's a sad times.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So where did your journey continue afterwards? You came back from Afghan. How long was you in the army for altogether?
So 4 years. Yeah. I loved it. I really did. But I got to a point where I wanted to start a family.
Yeah, of course.
I take my hat off to people that continue in their services with families. But for me as a female, I knew I couldn't step away for 6 months and go on tour with a little one at home. And then obviously it's all the 3 months, 4 months build up to pre-deployment as well. So for me, it wasn't, you know, a continuation. But whilst I was in Afghan, I was asked to teach. I say asked, as you know, in the army, you get told, don't you?
Yeah.
So I remember this, the RSM at the camp, the British RSM, come over to me and he goes, "You're the kicking girl, right? And you don't admit to anything, as you know." I was like, "No, sir, I don't know what you're talking about." And he's like, "Yeah, don't lie to me." Like, yeah. So I was like, oh, "Okay, yeah, that'll be me." And he just said, "Right, find a slot. You're teaching a weekly, whatever it is you do, class." And I was like, "No, I've never taught before. That's not my area."
You were a black belt,
and, yeah, I held my second dan at the time.
Second dan, yeah. Was that in
Taekwondo?
In Olympic
style Taekwondo, okay. Yeah. And I was never against it. I was like, nope, not doing it. And as you know, it was an order, and it was like, find the time, I don't care kind of thing. And actually, I adored it. I loved it. So we opened it up to everyone on camp, civilians, military personnel, any nationality. And we ended up doing twice a week, and it was just so drop in if you can. If you can't, don't worry about it.
That's how most martial arts classes used
to be.
Yeah,
pretty much. And it was great. We had people that didn't understand the language, but it's so universal, isn't it, martial arts? You can demonstrate something and people can catch on.
Yeah, of course.
People can catch on the energy of the lesson. And yeah, I just absolutely loved it. We had about 50 people in the lessons. We had special forces guys come in to train. We had different...
Give them a good thrashing, did you?
Yeah, well, one of the guys... oh, God, one of the guys, he was Taekwondo guy as well, so we used to train a little bit. And one time he's like, "Oh, should we do a session?" I was like, yeah, sounds good. And I remember Pad's holding for me. He kicked me so hard. He hit me through the wall. And I landed in the gym area, like laid over the bench. And this guy's like, "You okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll be fine." But yeah, and then before my Taekwondo class, the football was in. And the lieutenant colonel on the camp, so he was the highest ranking British officer on the camp at the time. He used to do the football. When he came over one time, he's like, "Oh, what are you teaching?" He was, interested. And I was like, "Oh, sir, why don't you join in?" He's like, no, it's not for me. And I probably gave him a few choice words, obviously a bit of a worse, all the rest of it. Anyway, he came in and he loved it. And then he stuck at it every week. And it was great. There was no ranks there. There was no...
Yeah, that's good.
Everyone just trained. It was, it was really good. And it was great because he became a friend and he got me out of trouble a few times.
It's always good to have them on side, isn't it? The higher ranks and the officers.
Yeah, my OC was like, "I think you need to go to your new friend." I'm like, "Okay, sir, let's go do this."
So obviously when you put in to leave, do you have to give a year's notice? It was when I was in, something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you know what you were going to do, or was you going to figure that out on then?
Yeah.
Because we kind of met, didn't it? Was you still in the army when I met you?
I was, yeah. So at the time, I wanted to try and go into something security.
Yeah. Like you do.
Yeah. You kind of go, "Oh, these are all the skills I've learnt. Let me take that onto civistry." And in the military, obviously, you get thrown loads of tasks and your age isn't a factor, or it's just, you're short man, do this, whatever. And so I got a lot of exposure, especially in Afghanistan. But on civistry, the interviews I was going through, it was all old boy police officers and retired. And they're looking at me and I'm, 21, 22, saying, "What are you doing sat here," kind of thing. And I wasn't having much luck, to be fair. And then I remember in one of the military magazines, it had one of your courses, the L2 course.
Yeah, the old L2 course.
And I won't even lie, I always hold my hands up, I won't lie. And I was just like, "Oh, I get a week off work. I go to train for a week, paid by the army, and I get to train. I'm going on this course for a jollies." And I literally went, for the training, and I met the other Lee who used to run the course, Lee Samsung. Hit it off with both of you, obviously both highly passionate about what you do. First time I was exposed to kickboxing as well. Like properly training.
It's a proper thrashing, that course as well, isn't it?
It was a thrashing.
That is the old school one as well. It's in the army camp, wasn't it?
Yeah, you had the assault course as well.
Yeah, on the Friday test.
Yeah, loved it. You got us all drunk on the Thursday night.
Did we? Just before the test.
Just before the test, yeah. And I stood there on the Friday thinking, what have I got to do now? This will be interesting. But yeah, no, great fun. And then I remember at the end, because it was a pass course, wasn't it? It still is, I know.
Yeah.
And then you invite people if you want them to take on as instructors. And I was just like, I've just had a cushy week. I've got to train. I'm like loving life at the minute. And I know you was, asking me to come on to teach, and I was really against it. And I don't know if you can remember.
I can remember having I remember one of the girls on the courses, who was one of my students at the time, said, have a word with Charlotte. She's like, she's really good, but she's dead apprehensive. Yeah. So I made sure I came over and had a chat with you, because there wasn't that many people really doing it, was there then? Well, there's a few, but not in the Taekwondo world. And from the people that you'd trained with, was it mainly just hobbies that these guys?
Yeah, 100%. So in my head, I was going, why am I leaving a full-time salary to take up something that in my head was just, beer money, really. And I think I was really apprehensive about it. And,
it is a risk, though, because you're starting your own business as well, weren't you, with that model?
No, definitely. Yeah. And I remember you saying, just give me 3 months. And if you're not like going in 3 months, step away, no hard feelings, but I promise you. And honestly, your faith in me in that time, made me go, okay, let's commit some time to this. And
I used to do that to start with. I said, listen, if you're not there, if you're struggling, I'll pay your bills for you.
Yeah.
Like, when I first started out, I was like, I had to just give people as much confidence in the fact that I'm there as a safety net, and you were never needed.
No.
If there's no safety net and you jump, you make it normally anyway, don't you? And I think coming from something that's not just employment, the army's above employment, isn't it? You are totally looked after in all areas of life. And then to go from that to the other extreme, which is to be self-employed and responsible for everything with no guaranteed money, is a big ask. And I was fully aware of that as well. But because I did it, and it's actually a lot easier to make a salary, equally a salary quite quickly, especially with martial arts. You've got to sign X amount of people up and you're covering your bills, and as long as you know what you're doing, you've got the processes. So tell us about the launch and how it happened as well.
Probably not the way at all I'd recommend anyone to do now. So
you launched over the summer, didn't you? And I said,
don't do it, Charlotte.
Don't do it over the summer. It's like the worst time.
So we was officially starting in September. But
that's a good time to launch.
Very good time, and January. But I had a month where I was still being paid by the army, and I was like, I need to utilize this time to the best. And so I was literally I was chucking out adverts, offering free classes. I was in a park. I was doing free one-to-ones. Like all the time. I'd meet some random people in a park and be like,
you're time free, aren't you? You've got a lot of time.
I met some like strange characters. I had some guys dressed up to the nines, and I'm like, have you got a kit bag with you? I'm taking you on a date. I'm like, where are you getting this information from? Like, this is a class. So there were some characters I met in that time. I would not recommend it at all. Do you think
because you're female instructors?
I meet some strange people.
You need to tell me some of these. Tell me some of the encounters that you've had.
There's so many. So one guy.
We'll get back onto that launch in a minute. Go on.
Yeah. So one guy that stands out. He. So obviously you phone him before and you chat to him, make sure you're in comfy clothes, blah, 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 blah. And so he's like, what should I wear? And I was like, and it was hot at the time, it was summer. And I was like, just wear something comfy, joggers, shorts, whatever you're comfy in. We're in a hall, so don't worry about your footwear, bring water, just, the standard stuff you say. So the guy comes in I always remember, like basketball shorts, which you'll probably not think about, but they're really baggy on the leg.
Yeah, they're not.
So it turns out he had nothing underneath, like the shorts. So I remember pad holding for him, and he comes up and he throws a kick, and I realise, there's nothing under there.
There's no way he wasn't aware that was.
Well, there must have been a breeze going up there, and I was like, what, 22 at the time? I was mortified. I was
scarred for life.
How do I deal with this situation? So it got to the point that I had a line of people, and every time they're holding it, I'm like giving input. Do this. I'm deadly excited about what I'm doing. Whenever he come, I'd be like looking over my shoulder like this. He's like, Charlotte, is this something wrong? I'm like, no. I'm like too embarrassed to say. And he's like, why won't you look? I was like, I can feel the technique, mate. It's fine. I was like, oh my God. So at the end, he was like asking for info. I was like, I'll call you.
Just don't sign those ones up.
No, definitely not. Yeah. But and then you get some that assume I'm there for dating purposes. And I was just like, that's not what it's about. But,
absolutely.
And then you get those that they assume because, I have boobs that I don't know my skill. I remember one guy, he's trained with us for a while actually, and he just wouldn't take any help whatsoever. And I kept trying to help. I was determined to get through to this guy. Yeah. And I remember one time I just lost my head. And I was like, you're paying me good money for my tuition. And you're not responding to anything I'm saying. What are you doing kind of thing? Yeah. And anyway, I said, you know what? Hold the pad for me. I'm going to demonstrate. Because I was always taught, you tell someone something, you show them it, and they have to feel it, right? And they'll learn. Anyway, held it really wishy-washy, and I was like, right, I want you to plant your feet, blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna whack it, mate. Yeah. And he looked at me as if you can't whack it. I thought, wow, I'm gonna send you flying. Anyway, I hit him, I sent him flying across the mat. So he lands on his backside. I said, have I proved my point yet? He was like, yeah. I was like, are we leaving now? He's like, yeah. I was like, all right, see you later, mate.
Brilliant. It must have been even more challenging for yourself as well. Yeah. With you get the big, fit, strong guys coming in and so you want to tell us?
So we are very much kid heavy at my academy. And a lot of we have male students, but I must admit, more of our meals are young, they started me as kids and they're turning into 20, 21-year-olds now. We have a lot of guys come in and they're like, where's the real instructor? And I'm just like, wow, this is lovely.
Sparring kit on.
Yeah, 100%. I would go, not normally let beginners in sparring, but you know what? You look like you can handle it. Come through. But you know what? It's their choice. I know I'm good at what I do.
Yeah.
And they can take us or leave us. I can't change who I am. I'm who I am, really, and I'm proud of what I can achieve.
Your kids into, that's what I did now.
100%.
When I stopped sparring everyone as I got a little bit older, because obviously it's inappropriate, to spar with all your students.
Character building.
Yeah. Until the advanced ones you do, obviously. Yeah. But I just put my kids in with them.
Yeah.
12, 13-year-old kids. Giving them a bit of a pasting, they soon realise, well, if they're good, you've got to be good.
Yeah.
So back to your launch then. So
yep.
you were launching your school.
Yep.
It was a bit of a slip start, was it then? Because you did it over summer, I remember, wasn't it? And then when it got to September, surprise, all the people come back from summer, and then they started signing up, didn't they?
We did really well. So I started in a school hall. I was really lucky. The school loved my enthusiasm and passion, and they were dead excited for what I was trying to do. And it was great. They offered me 1 day a week completely free. So
you're really good at getting free stuff, actually, aren't you? You're really good. Yeah. You still are.
Thanks. And so it gave me a lot more flexibility with finances, which was great. So I could put more money into marketing, the money I was saving on hall fees. And we built up, so we was doing 3 classes on a Monday, 3 classes on a Wednesday, and we pushed up to about 80 students within maybe like 2 or 3 months.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So then I replicated the same.
So you're earning more money than you were in the army already at that point.
Definitely, yeah. And it was great because I had so I remember on my last day, my OC was like, I'll see you in a year, you'll sign back up. And I was like, nah. And then a few months later, I was at a wedding, and there's all
earning
there.
more than you now, sir.
Yeah, I loved it. And then we just replicated the same system at a different school. And I did that for about 3 years. And then by that time, I'd been traveling, training at other clubs and stuff. And I saw like people had full-time centres, which growing up for me, it was always halls. And I was like, that's what I want. I want my own facilities.
Yeah, absolutely. It's every instructor's dream, isn't it?
100%. And
it's about timing with that, though. Some people do it wrong. Yeah. You've got to build your base up first, I would say. We have done a few cold launches.
Okay.
And they've been successful, but you're always better to build your base up first. Yeah. So you've got the cash flow to cover you're minimising your risk then, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? Because otherwise you do bet the ranch to kind of get yourself in. You did it just at the right time. How many students do you have when you moved over?
So probably about 150. And then we lost a really good size,
you always, even if you always lose a few, though, don't you?
Any
changes you make, whether it's another instructor or even when you move to a better facility, if it's not exactly where they were, you're going to lose some, but you can replace those very quickly, I'd imagine,
definitely.
Did you?
But we outgrew it in about a year.
Yeah, I remember,
And then, it was not the best facilities, but at the time,
it was great, though, for what you needed.
Yeah, definitely. I remember it was on the mezzanine floor, and we couldn't get the adults to do burpees because they'd be hitting the ceiling.
Yeah.
And then we moved into another one.
Good problem. Outgrowing your venue is a good problem. Not having enough students in your venue is a bad problem, isn't it?
No, definitely. But we've been really fortunate. I'm not shy of hard work either.
No, you're not.
So just built on that. We've got an amazing team around us as well. And all my team, all the guys that trained with us, from there was kids. They're not outside people. That's a couple are, but mostly it's our kids that are now adults. So they know kind of what we want, the standard we expect, how we like to talk to people. So that's doing amazing. And then we're now in a bigger facility. So actually COVID was obviously a really scary time for all the industries.
It was hard, wasn't it? Especially for our industry.
Yeah, and you're just seeing these numbers just drop. And I
70% of the students we lost.
Insane.
And then we got them all back.
Yeah.
But there were new ones.
Yeah.
You couldn't really reclaim your old ones. Once they've left a lot of the time, haven't they?
Yeah, it was hard.
And you experienced the same as well, didn't you?
I was pregnant with my son at the same time.
God, yeah,
so we was doing Zoom classes and trying to teach full lessons. 7-8 months pregnant was fun, but no, like you say, we come out of it the other end, and actually then after that there was this massive buzz about getting their kids involved in activities again. So we went back to class, and I think after about 3 months we realised we just didn't have the capacity anymore, and we moved again. And we've got fantastic facilities now. So I'm really, really proud of where we are.
Your place is amazing. I'm actually there. When am I there? Tomorrow or the next day?
Thursday.
We're filming, aren't we, on Thursday? Yeah. Your place is spectacular now,
amazing,
isn't it?
Yeah.
So you got one big, massive floor.
Yeah, we have
great
4,
energy.
Yeah, it is. We love it.
And then you've got a second room around the.
Yeah, so we've got 4 full competing spaces.
Yeah.
But we have we can pull a curtain across and separate into 2 if we're doing our beginners. Right. A separate waiting area for the parents, so they can have a catch up with each other, have a coffee, watch on the telly what the kids are up to, and then we can just graft with the kids and not listen to background noise.
Yeah.
And then we've got 2 satellite schools. So we've got Steve, he heads up our full-time centre in Morley, so South Leeds.
Yeah.
That's doing fantastic as well. He's got loads of energy, kids love him to bits. He's really animated with his lesson plans.
So you've got another full-time centre in Morley as well, haven't you? Where's your full-time centre?
So I'm in North Leeds, and then our second one's in South Leeds.
That's right. And then you've also got 10 satellite schools, haven't you, with one of your other team members? So you've got 12 locations altogether and over 500 students. That's right, isn't it? So well done. That is an amazing achievement. You don't get to 500 students accidentally. You have to be a certain type of a person to get to 500 students. Do you know what I mean? And not everybody is capable. You need to, you know, you don't just accidentally do it. No. I could put someone in your job role now with 500 students and they would deplete and go down to the level that the instructor's ability was at. Yeah. And their ability to problem solve, to work with team members. That's the hardest thing, isn't it? Yeah. Growing your team and keeping them on board and keeping your integrity. How do you, at definitely. The same time, you got to, because you're very much like me, you was in the military, black and white, you are a really good person to work for, your team love you, but you have high standards, really high standards, and you're unforgiving. It's got to be that way. Yeah. But there's a way of doing that as well, because the way the army do it, you just get bollocking, don't you? Yeah. It doesn't work in Civvy Street, doesn't it? No. Tell me a little bit about how you adapted yours, because I had to adapt my management skills quite considerably.
So I remember when I was teaching, and there's a lot of, I mean, I'm really bad for swearing, I know I am. But I don't swear, obviously, when I'm teaching or
I'm able to turn it on and off quite well.
Yeah, definitely. But coming from a military, there's a lot of terminology, let's say, that we use that is unacceptable in
inappropriate banter.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember if I did something wrong in the military, there was a word I was always called. And
begins with M.
It does begin with an M.
No one really says it anymore, do they? Yeah.
I was always Water, and that was what my name was. And I genuinely just didn't know that's not a word you can use. I just thought it was you're being a bit of an idiot.
Definitely a word you can't use, yeah.
I know this when I got told off by one of the parents. And I remember one time I was teaching a class with my cadets and my 8 to 11 year olds. I was like, guys, come on, why are you being such? Yeah. And I just noticed this glare coming off this mum, and I thought, okay, I know I've told them off, but they need to switch on a little bit. And after she pulled me across and she told me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I am so, you've got to hold your hands up when you're in the wrong, haven't you? Yeah. I was like, no, you're right. I should know that's unacceptable. But you just have, like you say, you get indoctrinated so much in the military.
Yeah, you don't know you're saying it sometimes, do you?
Yeah, you get blinded to what's acceptable and not what's acceptable. And I was like, I'm fully aware that's my apology, But and I think I had this conversation with someone actually last week, and I think coming from a high level competition mode to then teaching complete beginners, that's a different changing style of teaching as well, because you've got to accept that not everyone wants to compete, and my job is to get the best out of everyone. Yeah. But their best isn't what my best was, and that's acceptable, as long as they're gaining their life skills and they're working towards whatever their individual goals are. Yeah. So. And
you've developed some really good fighters as well now.
Yeah, definitely.
Quite a few good ones. One in particular has actually gone on to be really successful. Do you want to?
Dancho.
Yeah, Dancho. Do you want to tell us about him? Yeah, his full name as well, so everyone knows.
So Dancho Knight Mitchell. He started training with us. He was about 8. I'm sure he won't mind me saying he used to. He could get agitated really quickly. Yeah. His first year of competing, he was bloody nightmare. He really was, because he was so passionate about what he wanted to do, and he was pure passion. If he didn't win, he had no hardship with the other person or the referees, but he'd be so mad about himself. He would be
hard on himself.
Aggressive about it. And he'd be that one that wouldn't want to shake hands and be like, get your backside on those mats now. And it obviously came out of him, and he's just always been raw talent, absolute raw talent. But that's not enough, as he was dedicated and he was hardworking, and he'd listen just as much to positives as the criticisms, and really open-minded. He was like the model student. If you could pick 1,000 people, I'd pick him every time. So he was always doing kickboxing. He's done amazing in his kickboxing career. He came on, he was teaching with us as well. He did an apprenticeship with us.
He did all the instructor training course with me as well when he was quite a young man as well, didn't he?
Yeah, definitely. And loved it. Yeah. Our kids loved him, absolutely loved him. He was so energetic, and he's younger as well. So sometimes there are questions for him, and don't want to come to me. I'm old now. Dancho was the one. I'm like, go to whoever, that's fine. And then I was training again in Taekwondo because I went to do nationals. I was back fighting. I said, Dancho, come train with me. Come have some fun. And my Taekwondo coach instantly was like, who is this guy?
Oh, did you bring him down, show him?
Yeah. So he was like, can I video him? I was like, why? He's like, I want to send it to GB. I was like, yeah, crack on, see what happens.
Really? Is that what happened then? He just watched him and he saw the raw talent?
Yeah, absolutely. And he was very, he fights like a kickboxer, but then because of my background, he has elements of Taekwondo,
of course, you can tell your fighters.
Yeah,
I always tell your fighters,
but so they invited him over to do a development training session. And he got picked up on the junior development team. So he'd go over to Manchester, which is the home place of Taekwondo, for GB. And he was there 2 weekends out of a month.
That's where the main team, that are full-time.
So that's where the senior team go as well. And then, basically he got picked up through selection to join the senior team.
So is he in the senior team, the one that Damon Sanson
So the one that's Damon.
The very same one, is he?
The
wow.
same team, yeah. So
that's
it was
right to the very top echelon then, isn't it?
100%. So, it was a bittersweet. I couldn't have been more proud of him if he was my own, son.
Yeah.
But also we knew he was parting ways with us, and it was that we want to keep him, but he was ready to fly his wings. Yeah, 100%.
It's like that when Elijah left the top 10 team, gone to the All Stars and stuff. But you've got to.
They've outgrown it, haven't they?
Yeah, you've got as a coach as well. If you're a proper coach, you do what's best for your fighter, not what's best for you.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And it's same with your kids, isn't it? It's exactly the same. You're like their martial art parent.
Yeah.
So you have to do what's best for their development and for their future.
He's doing phenomenal. We're so proud of him. He just got back from Serbia, he got the gold over there, and he's in Sweden in 6 weeks'
And it's
time.
a credit to you as well. His success is your success, isn't it?
Yeah. He's loving it, and we're also so proud of what he's achieving over there.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. Well, it's been amazing talking to you today.
Thank you.
It's been good to speak to you about some stuff I didn't know as well, and delve into your military background a little bit, and that'll be really good for your students to hear as well, because you've had a great life. You've had some amazing life experiences. You're very accomplished. You're one of the most successful female coaches, fighters, instructors that I know in the UK.
Thank you.
And you are one of the hardest people I know, and hardest working as well. So it's amazing to work with you. You're so motivated. When we speak to each other, we get boom, the list of what we're doing, boom, we're both off, we're both sorting it. So it's a pleasure to work with you as well. And thank you very much for coming down today.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you.